SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Will East in the Element Wealth Studio, where we'll be guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning there, Will.
Morning.
What's going on after this rather long weekend? I trust you enjoyed it.
Well, I didn't enjoy all the rain.
Man, we live in a rainforest, don't we? It sure seems like it here lately.
Yeah, it rained all weekend at my house.
Yeah.
And finally stopped raining, and I looked at my grass. It was like it had grown about 12, because I'd mowed it right before all this rain hit. It had grown like 12 inches.
Just wait till it gets hot.
Yeah.
Little heat, little rain will certainly perk it up. That is for sure. We celebrated, if you could call it that. It's a solemn celebration, Memorial Day, where we remember and extend gratitude to those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. We always enjoy going down to the Mississippi Armed Forces Museum, as we did Friday. Had a great show down there, and I just got to say it again, what a gem, what a valuable asset is that Armed Forces Museum, which, of course, highlights the service of Mississippians. And Mississippi has an incredibly rich history in service to our country, men and women in uniform. Going back, artifacts, Will, to the Revolutionary War is what we were told. So that's incredible, isn't it, when you think about having those sorts of artifacts in that building, and many of those are just families. Sometimes a veteran loved one passes away. Mm-hmm. And they've got all this history, if you will, in a box. And they'll find out about the Armed Forces Museum. They'll give them a call, and they're just blown away by those gifts, of course. And then they curate that into exhibits, and it's just so well done. It really is. And if you haven't been there, folks, you need to take some time to do it and tour it. And as I said on Friday, my favorite exhibit is that of the Huey helicopter inside the building there, depicting a scene in Vietnam War. And I think the reason is because that's really the first war we saw on TV, if you think about it. And I remember as a child in the 60s watching those reports every single night. And you'd have footage because you have journalists in the field that were capturing these scenes. A Huey and an LZ picking up the wounded, their brothers helping them onto the helicopter. It's just so well done. It brings back all those memories. And shoot, that's 60 years ago. Hard to believe, but shout out to those guys, and we appreciate them for including us in their very solemn ceremonies where they, in the morning before the show kicked off, we could see it in the auditorium through the double doors there where they're recognizing those, again, who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. And speaking of which, speaking of military, of course, the president says we're getting close to a deal. The details are kind of sketchy. Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker he's advising against it somewhat. He says, look, we got to finish the job. That's his viewpoint on it. The president is working towards getting all of the Arabic nations in the region to signing off on the Abraham Accords, which means they would establish normal relations with Israel. And in doing so, of course, that means you're not going to attack them. And that would be just unprecedented if he could achieve that. And maybe that would create lasting, stable peace, which the whole world would benefit from.
I was reading about this over the weekend. Israel and Iran actually had a fairly decent working relationship up until the Iranian Revolution in, 1979.
That's right. They did.
They both kind of, keep your friends close but your enemies closer. They both kind of battled against Iraq when Saddam Hussein was in control there. So it's not unprecedented for them to work together a little bit. It just hasn't happened in quite a long time.
I think that's before the radicals took over.
And that's what happened. Yeah. When the Shah of Iran was in control in Iran, he worked with Israel to basically it's kind of funny. It's to kind of do what Trump has done to Iran. They were trying to stop Iraq from getting nuclear weapons.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So now, it's kind of the shoes on the other foot. But, it's Trump ain't playing around.
No.
They had a bombing, what was it, late last night.
Yeah.
Just to kind of remind them of, we're still here.
Sure did.
Just because peace talks are ongoing, we haven't signed anything just yet.
That's exactly right. So Memorial Day events across the country, that is traditional, of course, and the president heavily involved in that. But, Will, there's always got to be someone who, I don't know, tends to dismiss, I'll say, our men and women in uniform and always hijacks events like this, I think, for personal political gain. In this case, I'm referring to Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey.
Oh, that guy.
You probably saw that. So he delivered a Memorial Day message honoring George Floyd. Hours before he commemorated, of course, the U.S. troops who died while serving. That the purpose of Memorial Day. He had to include, he tried to elevate George Floyd to their level.
Well, I think it was the 6th anniversary of his death.
Okay. I do remember it was May.
2020. So
I remember 2020 May. We were right in the throes of the dead-gum COVID nonsense. And he said, today we remember George Floyd, who was murdered by a former Minneapolis police officer 6 years ago. That moment changed our city forever. How could you even think of bringing that up on Memorial Day? I get it, the fact that the day of that situation falls on, in this case, Memorial Day, as you indicate, the 6-year anniversary of that. That just seems completely inappropriate and shows you, honestly, what a political hack these people are. It's very, very bothersome. And I was just blown away to see that. Very sorry about that. Man, oh, man. And then you also saw that we did our country, Revolutionary War soldiers whose remains had been lost for 250 years. 40 Revolutionary War soldiers being added to the honor roll were added yesterday on Memorial Day. The discovery of their remains, of course, respect for them, laying them to rest, demonstrates that, even after 250 years, this being the 250-year birthday for America, we should still be humbled and be grateful to them.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Who fell in defense of liberty. Now, when you think about all the words we could say to express our gratitude, and we certainly should, the events we maintain and hold and conduct, all of that is appropriate. But maybe, Will, the most powerful thing we could do as Americans to honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice who gave their all in defense of this country is ensure that the flame of liberty continues to burn, not to squander it, not to waste it. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people in this country who seek, I believe, to suppress liberty for their personal gain. Of course, and they do it by framing it as going after people that they think are suppressing your opportunity, your gain, your quality of life. I don't know, because they're capitalists. They don't like capitalists.
They do not.
Pretty sure that the capitalistic system that has made this country the most powerful, the most prosperous in the history of the world is exactly what the founders and those who gave their lives in service to our country contemplated. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio. We got Captain Chris Turnipseed at 10:35. He's with the Mississippi Highway Patrol. Give us an update on the busy travel weekend. Dr. Braxton Stowe, Program Director of the Principal Corps at Ole Miss at 11:05.
The one body.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
We're rolling.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
Awesome. On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Yeah, man, a little Deep Purple bumping us into this segment. Appreciate that, Will. Good tunes there. You know, just kind of wrapping up this discussion of Memorial Day, which is completely appropriate because we were off yesterday, had the best of, and it's important for us as Americans to honor those who made that ultimate sacrifice, who were called by their country, did their duty, never came home. And you think about all the families who lost out of the rest of the lives of those who did perish. The President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, remember his speech, I think it was 1984, where he honored those who perished in Vietnam. I think 58,000. The total number. And there was kind of an interment. I remember a casket with the traditional flag draped over it during his speech there, I believe at the White House lawn. And that was appropriate because when those guys came home, they just went to do a duty, as you know, called by their country. They weren't treated very kindly by many in this country. And I remember traveling to the West Coast. My brother was in the Air Force, stationed at, I believe it was Beale Air Force Base in Marysville, California. Had to fly through San Francisco, which was where a lot of those guys returned. Mm-hmm. And that was 68. And I remember the way they were treated. They were getting off the airplane. You didn't have TSA back then, so everybody could just wander around the terminals as they saw fit. And they were shouting them down and had all kind of goofy signage, kind of halfway spitting at them and stuff. And I'm like, I'm 10 years old wondering, what the heck's going on here? It's just, these are guys in their uniform that just came home, survived it, their tour of duty. And it was appropriate, I think, for President Reagan. We could argue all day long about whether or not we should have been involved in Vietnam. That's a separate matter in my view. These guys were called to do it, and gals were called to do a job. And they did it. They didn't get involved in the politics of war. They signed up, sometimes drafted back then, of course. And they just heeded the call. And we're grateful for them. And I thought that was totally appropriate, by the way, for President Reagan to recognized that. It was a few years later, of course, 72, I think, when the war essentially ended and we pulled out. And who could forget the fall of Saigon? There was a vacuum created as soon as we left. But I think
you mentioned a Huey helicopter, that scene of that helicopter lifting off the embassy roof.
Yeah, that was it. And then there's also footage of ships returning and then pushing those assets into the ocean, and on the way back. So, yeah, again, we could argue all day long and debate the war. It has been a lot. And I don't know that there is anybody that's on the right side of that or the wrong side of that. It's just opinion. Simple as that. But what's not up for opinion and debate is the service of these men and women to our country, especially the 58,000 who paid the ultimate sacrifice. They were just doing their job, man. Period. And, the average age in country, 19. 19! I think there's a song about that. It's entitled 19. I'm not talking about the Steely Dan Hey 19 song. I think there's one that is like a protest song from that era, as I recall. But once again, we're so blessed. We have the world's most powerful military, and man, if the world ain't seeing that now with what's happening, they got their eyes closed. And the president has made it clear that a nuclear Iran is unacceptable. I agree with him. And he's working towards a deal that will hopefully totally quash their nuclear ambitions. He's made it clear that that's not up for debate. But, man, if he could get those countries in the region who, honestly, many of which historically have viewed Israel as a enemy, as a foe, if he could get them to sign the Abraham Accords, that would stabilize the region considerably, assuming that they would comply with what they agree to. And I certainly hope that they would. But stuff's popping, no doubt about it, right now in the region. In fact, this morning, you probably saw it well, it was announced that he's headed to Camp David right now to gather up with his advisors on kind of what steps, what can we do. I sense he's a bit frustrated that with all of the harm, honestly, we've inflicted, and I don't mean physical destruction. There's been some of that, of course, but economic. Their country's suffering bad because you got a selfish regime that cares more about their personal hides than the tens of millions of people that live in that small country. And there's all kinds of reports of how bad that situation is getting. And I've said it before, it kind of reminds me of how President Reagan, in fact, broke the Soviet Union. It was economically. It wasn't by invading or firing shots or dropping bombs. You just killed them economically. And that's kind of what's happening here. Seems like a similar strategy. But there's talk about opening the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, that's got the crude oils down to $94 today. The Dow was up significantly earlier this morning, 250 points. It's down now. I'm not exactly sure why, but the NASDAQ's on fire. It's up again, 300 plus points, 283 now, looking good. But the yield on the 10-year Treasury, this is important because that drives your mortgage rates, other loans. It's down as well, and that just means that bond traders are more optimistic about getting this thing over, getting inflation under check, under control, and that starts, of course, with getting the price of oil down. I know people are weary of paying those high prices at the pump. You're seeing a lot of people on social media say, I've never paid this much before, and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully we can get this thing put to bed and bring it to an end, and that's kind of where we are at this point. I'm optimistic. And I honestly think the president, being the deal maker in chief, is the most perfectly suited president we could ever have, I think, to negotiate this deal, bring closure, but most importantly, it be a good deal for this country, America first, and the entire world. But he's holding a cabinet meeting right now at Camp David. This is pretty rare for him to summon the entire cabinet. And this is because there were some strikes this morning by the United States, done in self-defense, is what is being reported, to defend our troops and our folks that are in the region that wear America's uniform. So we'll see what comes out of that for sure. You know, I'm kind of curious, Will, as to how the driving was. Looking forward to talk to Captain Turnipseed. I haven't talked to anybody that said they cut down significantly, maybe a little shorter trips, maybe shorter distances and shorter stays to economize a bit. But overall, sure does seem like that demand is strong, and thus there's no turning back at this point, the price at the pump. We will see how all that goes, but looks like that's where we are.
Yeah, we had family in town. I don't know if here it's just kind of hard to judge, just by looking around you. But I'd heard reports. CNBC had reported that they expected travel to be down because of gas prices. You wonder how much of that is kind of set in to where there's the initial shock of like, oh, it takes $100 to fill up my truck, and then it kind of, as time goes on, you get more accustomed to it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So maybe there's a little bit of that to play. Prices seem to have stabilized. You're not seeing these big jumps.
Yeah.
Which a lot of times that is a shock to the system. You go to the pump one day and the next day it's 50 cents more. So we'll see. I'm telling you, though, for midterms, it's all about the gas prices.
Well, here's the deal with the midterms. With respect to all the money being spent on campaigns, the most powerful advertisement
absolutely
is the price on the signage at the convenience store.
Yep.
By far. Let's hope we get that in check. We're stepping aside for a break right now. Once again, Deep Purple bumping us out of this segment. When we come back, it's Captain Chris Turnipseed, Director of the Mississippi Highway Patrol Public Affairs. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook Hut.
It's time for Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well Studio. We're pleased to welcome now Captain Chris Turnipseed. He's the Director of the Mississippi Highway Patrol Public Affairs Division. Captain, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, good morning, Joe. How are y'all doing today? We happy to be here.
Yeah, man. So are we. Yes, sir. Give us some good news. Hopefully Mississippians were safe on our roads that traverse the Magnolia State over the long holiday weekend.
Well, we did okay this weekend, I'll say. We did have a few crashes. I would say, it's just been so much rain. It's just been so hard for a lot of people to get out and do and travel and stuff. So that kind of kept us down. It kept us down to probably a less than average size for, a Memorial holiday travel. But we did end up with about 190 crashes over the weekend. And a lot of that's due to weather. A lot of it, matter of fact, it was happened yesterday. We had a lot of folks traveling yesterday, I guess, going home for the weekend, and it was, we had all this rain everywhere yesterday. A lot of it was, just hydroplane type crashes and stuff like that. But we did have one fatality. We recorded one fatality through the period, which happened up in Monroe County, which is up in the northeastern part of the state. So not a 0, but definitely better than 5 or 6 or 7. Usually Memorial Day is a pretty one of those holidays we usually have a lot of fatal crashes on, and the month of May has been really unusual for us this month. We've had a lot of fatal crashes over the month of May, so I was kind of expecting that trend to hold through Memorial Day. But with just one, I would like to say I was surprised with that happened, but can't complain too much. Your favorite category. Well, I will say this: they wrote about 4,900 citations over the weekend.
Gosh.
And, your favorite category, seatbelt and child restraint, about 551 of those. So we still
unbelievable.
Seatbelts and child restraint is still that's still a hard obstacle to maneuver for some folks. But we're trying. It's not for a lack of trying. We're trying to get everybody to buckle up. This weekend also coincides with the Click It or Ticket campaign. So seatbelts are a big emphasis for us through the Memorial holiday weekend. But not too bad. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah.
It's this weather. Probably a lot of people were kind of dreary and kind of depressed. It's just I haven't seen this much rain. We needed the rain at some point, but somebody needs to turn that faucet on here at some time.
Yeah, well, I
be so much.
Yeah, I wondered how that might exacerbate the mishaps over the weekend, because there's a lot of people traveling, but when you're traveling in the rain, it just makes it that more dangerous. I was coming back from doing a remote on Friday from Hattiesburg up 49, and around the Mount Olive area, there was a vehicle that had a crash, and there were several state trooper vehicles around it, and man, the traffic was blocked up there on 49 for what looked to be several miles to me, southbound traffic there. So yeah, that's when it was really raining hard. As soon as we completed the show at 1:00. In fact, I didn't bring an umbrella in and got drenched to get into my vehicle there at the Armed Forces Museum. And I just felt like that looks like, coming on a 2-lane road, entering 49 there, and it's kind of curvy, and there's big hills on both sides that, not much area on the shoulder there, that it just makes it more difficult, which means what, Captain? You need to slow down, pay attention, and be careful.
100%. That is your best defense against wet roads is just slow down. I mean, you're not going to, you can have as much skill of the driver as anyone, but you can't get them speeds reduced. Your car and the road surface and the water between your tire and the road, that's something you can't control even with all your skill. So you have to reduce those speeds so it gives your vehicle time to settle down and actually make traction with the asphalt. And you got these different places. You got hills and stuff where you got water. It can only, depending on how much it's raining, this is just basic physics, and water can only drain off the roadway at such a pace. And some of these downpours we have, I mean, the water's not coming off fast enough. There's no way to get it off fast enough. You couldn't slant it like a Daytona racetrack and still get the water off quick enough, when you've got these monsoon rains that we have. So that's just the nature of the beast when you're dealing with rain. Just got to pay attention. We got to wear that seatbelt and surely put that phone down. A lot of folks in this rain and stuff still want to entertain themselves. It's just that's never a good time. But in the rain, my goodness, definitely not a good time to be doing that. So,
Captain, what about tires? That's even a bigger problem, right? When it's wet, you make sure that your tires aren't too worn. You have some tread, and then also that they're aired up properly as well. Isn't that important?
Right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. A lot of people don't know this about rain, but a lot of people, tires that are underinflated, those underinflated tires actually cause more of an issue with hydroplaning. We run in our patrol vehicles, we try to keep around 45 pounds of air in our tires, which some people think, well, that's a hard ride. The vehicle doesn't ride as soft everybody wants that soft ride, but, properly inflated tires do better at dispersing water on a roadway.
Sure.
So I always, we try to keep our tires, make sure they're definitely not underinflated, but yes. And you want to have that traction. You want to be able to put that penny in there and put Abe Lincoln's face in there and be able to see his face. And I can't really describe it without showing it to you, but there's a way you can kind of check the tread on your tires. But I say all that to say this: just don't, you're driving around with worn out tires and slicker tires that just have a little tread on. Yeah, that's definitely going to compound the problem with driving on wet roads. A good set of tires that are properly inflated, slow, driving reasonable speeds. But those are your best defenses against losing control on wet roads.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, hopefully folks will heed that and avoid these accidents, these crashes.
It looks like we're going to get, there's going to be the same situation pretty much throughout the week as far as the rain goes. And I'm just hoping, we've had issues before with water and flooding getting on roadways for sure. And just a reminder to folks, you see a roadway covered with water. I mean, don't drive through it. They always say, turn around, don't drown. But, that the current, if there's a current, especially if it's a creek or something carrying some water across a roadway and you put your vehicle in it, and you might not think, well, it's not much water, I can get across it. But your car kind of acts like a sail, when you go across a vehicle and the water kind of hits the side of the car. And it just acts like a sail. And it's so easy for it to push a car off the roadway, into a creek or a ditch on the other side, and you could really have some problems there. So we always tell people not to drive across flooded roadways, and that's definitely a lot of truth in that turn around, don't drown saying you always hear. And that could be a possibility, this week is if it keeps raining and some of these creeks get out and or rivers, back up into these creeks and get out into the roadway. It's something we're going to have to definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah. Captain, give us an update on the new MHP public service or public safety, headquarters. How's that going?
Man, I tell you, if you haven't been out, it's definitely a sight to behold. We are officially moved in this month, the month of May, and it is a beautiful building, state of the art. I mean, you really just have to come in and see the thing to kind of appreciate it. The construction and the design and everything they put into the building. I mean, it's massive. It's a behemoth of a building, but they've got all of the Department of Public Safety fit in this building with, of course, with all of our support crews and staff, and supply and the people that do the HR. Just everything and all the divisions are. The building is just it's so big. Just everything fits in there so well, and it was nice design, well laid out, very convenient. And I kind of like where it is because it's kind of closer and easier for me to get to. You don't have to drive all the way through Flowwood to get there, so I'm not going to complain about that part of it. But it's really nice. Y'all, if you're out near Pearl, out near the Whitfield area out there, the Fire Academy, stop by. Well, we'd be glad to show it to you. It's something definitely to see.
Well, I've seen
futuristic looking.
Seen the photos. It looks like a great facility and desperately needed the old one. It was time for it to go. We're out of time, but Captain, always a pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you and thank all the state troopers for their service. Appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Coming right back, folks.
Come on. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Shout out to my good friend, Representative Steve Lott. He's down on vacation somewhere in the Caribbean, and I could see the ocean in the background. He just sent me a photo. He's trying to relax, and he's got a laptop with the show fired up on it. So have fun down there, and congratulations to you. Of course, your daughter graduating, and I will see you this Saturday because it's the Mississippi legislature versus the Alabama legislature in the annual softball game. I think last year they played Louisiana, year before Alabama. Playing Alabama again this Saturday at Shockers Park down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast on Highway 90 there, just across from the Beau Rivage. And after the softball game, it's the house band going to entertain the attendees to the game. So,
is there anybody doing both? Playing in the game and playing in the band?
Well, I don't think so. Now, the first year, I was brought in to do a little pitching for a couple of innings. But this year, and then
a ringer, huh?
and the reason is because they asked me to do the PA for the game at Embrace Park, which was a lot of fun. So, yeah, I'm a little old to be doing that now. I can't move quite as fast. Don't have quite the reflexes. No, but this year I think we're just going to get all set up and play music. Looking forward to. And of course, we added Sweet Home Alabama to the set list, right, for our Alabama friends, but. On behalf of the Speaker of the House, we added Good Time Charlie Sings the Blues. We expect for the Mississippi legislature to emerge victorious at the game. So, oh, man. Should be fun, though. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. Good grief. We live in a rainforest around here, don't we? My gosh.
It's been crazy. You know, we went through April. April showers bring May flowers, but there was almost no rain in April, at least the majority, not until the end, really. And then May has just been soaked.
It's like reversed. The months got reversed. So we'll see. And speaking of that sort of stuff, the subject of time, how about this possibility of daylight savings time being made permanent? The president, this is something I've talked about on the show. The president said something about this a few years ago. I can't remember if it was in his first term or maybe it was on the campaign trail for the 24 election. But I don't know if you recall this, Will, but at one point he actually said standard time, which was a deviation from what he previously said. And I think he just got them conflated. I think that the intent always was to make daylight saving time permanent, so that there's no changing of the clocks twice a year. The Sunshine Protection Act, you know, the state of Florida has a bill that's just waiting for the federal government to sign off on this that would make that the law in the state of Florida. That's something that's been attempted here in the state of Mississippi, but it's really never passed. We don't really have any legislation that has a trigger mechanism, if you will, that says, hey, if the federal government approves of this, which is what it would require, that, boom, we would adopt that. But looks like this has a possibility of becoming federal law.
Well, let me tell you, the House Energy and Commerce Committee voted on it 48 to 1.
Right.
Now, let me tell you something about the United States of America in the year 2026. Nobody gets a bipartisan vote that lopsided these days.
So we can't agree on squat except that, right?
You can't agree on where the sun's in the sky. But they voted 48 to 1. And I don't know who and there's a few people on this committee that you would think, okay, they're against anything that Trump's for.
Yeah.
AOC is on this committee.
Yeah.
You know, it's majority Republican, obviously. But I'm trying to look at Kevin Mullen, some of the others that are on this committee. She's probably the most famous one, really, on the Democrat side. So I haven't looked at. There's 54 total members on the committee. I guess the rest weren't present, but I need to see who that one person who voted against it.
Who voted against it? Yeah, interesting. So honestly, my personal opinion is I don't mind changing the clocks. I know a lot of people object to that. That's certainly fine. I get it. But if we're going to go to one, I'd way prefer it to be daylight saving time over standard time. I think a lot of people, I'm certainly one of them, really enjoy the additional daylight in the spring and summer months and in the early fall months. I certainly do. And maybe I'm showing my golf and outdoor sports bias, I guess. But here's the thing to keep in mind, because I remember this, Will. I don't remember the exact year, early 70s, 72, 73, something like that, when we converted to daylight saving time in an effort to combat the energy crisis. We're out of oil back in the 70s is what they were telling us, and all kinds of fear-mongering around that. But here was the problem. It's dark at 8 o'clock in the morning in the winter months for a couple of months in this part of the country, and you got the children getting on school buses and getting out of their cars at school and stuff like that. And that's a bit of a problem, and that's why we converted back off of it, was over that concern. So we'll see what happens there. Interesting, though, that this is looks like it may happen. Fox News, SuperTalk News, and then Dr. Braxton Stowe, Program Director, the Principal Corps at Ole Miss. Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now Dr. Braxton Stowe, Program Director of the Principal Corps at Ole Miss. Dr. Stowe, good to see you.
Gerard, it's good to see you. It's a beautiful day here, and it's what they say is God's country.
There you go. That's absolutely awesome. All right, so start by just telling the folks exactly what is the Principal Corps.
Yeah, so Principal Corps, our program, which has been in existence for 20 years, and what we do, we work with school districts, and they identify outstanding teachers, guidance counselors, or instructional coaches who have a desire to be a school leader, serving as a principal or assistant principal. And what we do, we take them through a 13-month intern-based program where they'll finish and be a transformational school leader, and they'll be ready to lead a school day one. And so it's a full scholarship program. We pay for tuition, books, we pay for fees. And what's the beautifulness and uniqueness about this program is that the individual still gets their salary, right? They're on a sabbatical with their district, and they're serving as an administrative intern in their district. So they're learning on the job. They're seeing firsthand experience what that principal is doing. So it's really a unique program to where you're seeing, you don't have the responsibility of teaching or guidance counseling, but you are fully immersing yourself in the administrative world to where once you're done, you have seen and experienced a lot of the things that principals and assistant principals see on a daily basis.
So, Dr. Stowe, is this program, the Principal Corps, is this part of the School of Education at Ole Miss?
Absolutely, yes. So it's part of one of our programs here. We still have our traditional program. So in our traditional program, a teacher would still be a full-time teacher and then taking courses. Okay. And with our traditional program, it takes about 2 years to finish this program. Okay. So with Principal Corps, it's fast-paced, but you can do that when you're not full-time teaching. You're more so full-time immersing in the Principal Corps program. Okay.
Makes total sense. So would you consider this kind of augmentative, so to speak? This just goes beyond the traditional curriculum for an education major, that this really is more focused on being an administrator, a school leader, a principal?
Yeah, well, the programs are the same. So an individual who's doing our traditional programs will take the same courses as you would in the Principal Corps program. Okay, gotcha. The main difference, I'll say there's two main differences. Well, probably three. Of course, the scholarship, it is paid for. That's one. The second is that it's a full-time internship. Now, even in our traditional program, you still have to get internship hours. You still have to do internships, but that can become very difficult being a teacher. So you're trying to be very creative as a teacher to figure out these hours. With Principal Corps, you are fully immersed in an internship. And then also it's a cohort base. And I think that's the beautifulness of this program. And I did this program back in 2013, so I'm a product of this program. So I'm very fortunate to be able to come back in my second year and lead this program. And those individuals who were in my cohort, we're still great friends to this day. As those people who are in leadership know, it's lonely at the top. And so you need people to talk to. You need that encouragement, which having a cohort model with Principal Corps, I think that's one of the three things that separates from our traditional program.
Okay. So, but you've got an announcement concerning how you're extending this, right, to those that are working in the charter school environment, which are actually public schools.
Correct. That's right. So Dr. John Dixon, who's the executive director of the Mississippi Charter School Association, he's actually a graduate of our doctoral program here in the School of Education and Educational Leadership. And one thing that he obviously, I don't think there's not a secret about how our charter schools are performing, and wanted to figure out how we can truly help our charter schools. And one thing about school leadership is that the most important person in the schoolhouse is the teacher. Nobody will argue that. The second most important person is the school leader, which some researchers say impacts roughly 25% of student achievement. Now, I'll say this, being a teacher and a principal, who hires the teacher? It's the principal. Yeah. And I also say this too. You show me a strong school, I'll show you a strong administrator. I'll show you a strong leader, right? And with this model, I think this is what the charter school was saying. Hey, how can you help us kind of really achieve transformational leadership in our schools? One thing we are very proud about with Principal Corps, we've at the end of this summer, we would have graduated 184 alumni. Out of 184 alumni, there's 35 that serves as principals and it serves as superintendents. Out of those individuals, 91% of those graduates have a school district or a school that's an A, B, or C. Okay. 61% has an A or B rated school. Wow. So we are very proud about our success, right? And so that is something that John was very interested in, to where there's something that in our training that our students, our alumni are going out and leading transformational schools. And so, again, that is something that John wanted to offer for our charter schools and give them that same opportunity, because leadership matters. I understand we may talk about our need for more teachers and our teacher shortages. We also have an administrator shortage as well. Mississippi released data back this fall. There were 99 reported principal vacancies in the state of Mississippi. Wow. 99. That is astounding number, to where 99 schools in our state doesn't have a leader, right? And again, I'm sure they might have filled it with some retirees or kind of making do, but again, that our students in our state don't get a do-over, right? These students get a one opportunity for us to make some for them to grow academically. And I think the charter school realized that and realized kind of how we as Principal Corps can help them with that.
We got a couple of minutes left. Talk a little bit about the curriculum, Dr. Stowe.
Yeah, so it's a 30-hour program. And we're hearing things from, they'll take things from how do you set up a mission and vision? How do you lead your school instructionally? We're going to talk about how do you manage your school? How do you lead ethically? How do you really talk about how you making sure that you're providing great opportunities for all of your students? How do you work with your communities, right? So it's 30 hours, it's 10 courses, and you're getting a whole gamut of what effective leadership should be, right? You're getting the theory, right? And the difference is more so how do you put that in practice, which I think with our program, you get a chance to see that daily in your internship.
Well, hopefully there's also some focus on just dealing with people, right? Managing people, handling difficult situations. It doesn't matter if you're a principal in a school or you're the CEO of a manager in a company or whatever the organization is. That's fairly common because we're wired that way. It's ingrained in us as human nature. I assume they get into that as well, right?
Absolutely. We tell them that, the students, kids are kids.
Yeah.
I've worked in different schools. I've served as a principal for 10 years before I came to be a director. And I worked in the Mississippi Delta. I've led schools in Columbia, Mississippi. And most recently, I was the high school principal at Ocean Springs High School. And one thing that was so consistent were the students. Students were the same. They loved the same music. They dressed the same. The difference is managing the adults in the building.
Totally.
And again, we talk about how do you be the example for people to follow, right? One thing we say with Principal Corps, we say really two things. If you're leading and no one's following you, you're out for a walk. But also, too, you have to let people help you load the wagon, help you build the school, because then they'll help you pull it. And because leadership, even though it is lonely, leadership, as we all know, and you said it, CEOs, leaders, you can't lead the organization by yourself.
That's right. It's about uniting and getting everybody pulling the wagon in the same direction toward these understood, stated, common objectives. All about that. Doesn't matter if it's a school or a private company or a public sector entity. Same deal. I love it. Appreciate it, Dr. Stowe. Appreciate your work. Sounds like a great program, and I think it makes Mississippi's educational system certainly that much better because of it. Dr. Braxton Stowe, the Principal Corps at Ole Miss. Thanks for joining us today.
Gerard, thank you so much. And I see you like wearing polos, so I got some Principal Corps swag coming your way, sir.
Yes, sir. I'll wear it on the air. Thank you. Appreciate it. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite! On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Man, you can always count on a steady diet of vintage classic rock when Will is behind the controls there. Man. That's absolutely. That is Boston, 1976. Their original album. The song that put the group on the map. More Than a Feeling. Good one there. Appreciate that. Appreciate Dr. Braxton Stowe, Program Director of the Principal Corps at Ole Miss, for joining us today. And anybody out there that has a teacher in their family or knows someone as a teacher, they will often say that their job, their work satisfaction is a direct result of the principal in the school. And by the way, study after study, Will, through the years, by people that study workplace environments and what makes a positive workplace culture and achieves job satisfaction. Number one issue, not pay. It's the person you report to. It's your boss.
I mean, if you're getting paid a lot of money, but you're miserable every single day, you probably go, is it worth it?
Exactly. So the sweet spot is you've got a great management environment, and the people that you're reporting to are just good to work for and motivate you and don't stress you out. And you're making a lot of money doing it. That's the sweet spot. Those are the most productive companies and organizations in general. But it starts at the top, as you know. And that culture and that business philosophy and that way of just dealing people and managing difficult situations, it's all about that makes for a productive and a happy work environment. And study after study has shown that what people want more than anything is to feel valued. They want to feel like I'm doing my job, and that's recognized. Doesn't mean you have to get an award every day for doing it, but it's recognized as providing value to the organization. That's just built in our DNA. We want to feel like we're making a difference. We're making a contribution. And it's even better when you get paid to do it, right? But a bad boss can pretty much inhibit that feeling. You never have that. And it's also very dynamic. It's a work in progress. You're never perfect at that as a manager. You keep trying to get better and better and better at it. And you learn from your mistakes. It's all you can do, and to make a good working environment. But that applies to schools, and I think that's what the principal corps is all about. There's no difference. There's a hierarchy, an organizational structure there, and if you don't care to work with the principal or the assistant principals as a teacher in the trenches in the classroom every day, you're probably also not performing at your best, which means the students, the children, are being disserviced, so to speak. And just like Dr. Stowe said, you got one little window there to get that right. And that's absolutely true. That's 100% spot on. So, but I appreciate the focus there and appreciate the fact that they have extended this and expanded it to the charter schools. Now what we got to do, Will, is expand the charter schools in the state. They're currently restricted to only D and F districts, and we ain't got many of those anymore. And I think that sort of calls into question, to some extent, the validity of the way we figure all that out, how we grade districts and so forth. But we should allow charter schools to be established in any district, in my view. And by the way, HB2 this year would have done that, would have expanded charter school opportunities, but unfortunately that didn't go very far, as you know, in the Mississippi State Senate. It died a very rapid death of about 84 seconds there. In Education Committee Chairman in the Senate, Dennis DeBar's committee, we played that. That's become infamous somewhat. We played that on the show, that very short 84-second clip. Just no appetite in the Senate. And honestly, a thin margin in the House. But maybe at a minimum, we could expand the charter schools to, let's add the C districts at a minimum. We should do that. I participated as a panelist. Didn't get a chance to talk about that Friday. We were at the Armed Forces Museum for the remote. But I participated as a panelist on Thursday. The Harrison County Republican Club sponsored a school choice forum. Well done. Really appreciate Harrison County for getting folks together, that fall on different sides of that argument. And we were all asked a series of questions. Every panelist had the opportunity to expand on that particular question and respond to those questions. Moderator did a good job, and we had 5 of us in the 4 category and 3 in the opposed category, and 1 who's a homeschool parent who's neutral. And so she's actually making a choice in educating her child in the homeschool. Her objection and concern was that, if we were to sort of institutionalize this, then the government would dictate to me how I have to teach my children at home. And that's her fear. A legitimate fear, though not what the bill that did not pass this year that came out of the House, Speaker Jason White's bill, would have done. But I certainly appreciate her concern. And look, all good people, by the way, and all want the best. I want to be clear about that. Everybody wants the best. It's just a matter of the proper approach to achieve that, right? So we just have different viewpoints on that. That's what makes this a great country, that we can have respectful, civil debate. And it really wasn't in debate form. It was a question asked, and the mic was handed down to each panelist, and you had 45 seconds, which isn't a lot of time to respond. That was about an hour and a half of that. And it went really well. It started out with, hey, why do you support or oppose this? In your own words. So it was well done, well attended as well. It was at the Sunkissed Country Club in Biloxi, an old facility that was really well done. Old in that it's been the Sunkissed Country Club, I should say, that has been around a long time. And they had drinks and snacks for us, really well done, cheese and fruit and stuff like that. The WLOX, the local television station, they attended. I did a little interview for them before the event started on WLOX. And so it was well done. And this is what I think needs to happen across the state, honestly, is that we need to get out and get people involved and engaged to hear all the issues and the viewpoints on all the various issues so that folks can make an informed opinion. I think all too often, it doesn't matter what the issue is, our opinions are shaped by what we see on social media. I'm loving all the data center protests and AI protests from people who are using AI and data centers to protest the AI and data centers. It's just unbelievable how viral that's gotten. Like, again, if you want less supply of something, well, then reduce demand, right? So with every keystroke you type, with every video you publish, you're increasing demand. And thus you're increasing the need for more compute, more storage, more network, more land, more water, more electricity, all the things that people concern themselves. And I'm not going to go down the data center rabbit hole today. Lord knows I've done enough of that in the last couple of weeks. And our friend CC in Senatobia, he kind of scolded me a little bit last week on that. And I appreciate that, CC. It's something I'm very passionate about because there's so much misinformation. More than anything else, just misinformation. Does that mean there are no concerns? No. It just means that kind of like the climate change stuff. Remember that, Will, that we were told the polar caps were going to melt? That was like, 10, 12 years ago that was supposed to happen or something like that. Where are we? I don't think that happened. So, and this kind of reminds me of that to a great extent. Something that's certainly getting a massive amount of attention here in the state of Mississippi is this whole issue of redistricting, right? And our governor, Tate Reeves, has said, we're going to address this before the 27 election cycle, but stop short of saying I'm going to call a special session to address our congressional redistricting. And you already know that the session scheduled for last Wednesday, the special session to address our judicial districts, was canceled because another court came out and said, no, your districts are drawn just fine. You don't need to make any changes to that. And so everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but those who would like to see redrawing of our congressional districts got pretty vocal, imploring our governor to call a special session to do just that. We'll see where all that lands. Got some news on Representative Thomas Massey in Kentucky on the other side of the break. We are in the Element Wealth studio. It's Middays. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook.com.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. So Congressman Thomas Massey, fresh off his loss to a Trump-endorsed primary challenger last week, he has already filed to run for Congress in 2028. Already suited up. But he's hinting at the possibility of running for the White House. Is Thomas Massey. How about that? What do you think? I thought that was kind of bizarre.
It is.
But it seems like he's serious about it. We shall see. I guess at this point, nothing official. And of course, he would cast himself as a libertarian. I think he runs as a Republican, but as a libertarian. Well, they've got their convention, national convention, coming up this weekend. And there's a bit of a controversy brewing because there's a proposal to mandate professional attire, neat facial hair, and I love this one, Will, closed-toe shoes at the convention.
Which tells you there's a problem with beards and sandals.
Well... There are some folks...
They believe in freedom of economy, freedom of speech, and freedom of toes. Okay?
Yeah, apparently so. So, this individual named Ben Weir, maybe Weir, I don't know how it's pronounced, W-E-I-R, 36 years old. He went to X, Twitter, said... I've had it with the wacky costumes, which have long been a staple of political party conventions, but seem particularly popular among do-what-thou-wilt libertarians. He says, no more using a boot for headwear. I didn't know that. As one convention mainstay named Vermin Supreme, that's his name, apparently puts a boot on his head. No more see-through clothing to promote government transparency. This guy Ware's running for Merrimack County Sheriff in New Hampshire. He couldn't go to the convention, but he's asking the party's national committee to establish, quote, a baseline professional dress standard for participation in official proceedings. Business casual attire, neat facial hair, and closed-toe shoes. Says also, biological males shall not wear dresses, skirts, or attire traditionally recognized as women's wear. That's what Mr. Ware also wrote in the message. He sent it to the party's governing board as they proposed a policy amendment. Quote, clothes that are overly theatrical, fetish-oriented, or materially inconsistent shouldn't fly. But then another libertarian attendee said, you hate freedom of speech, my dude. Oh, it says that Ware's proposals are an anathema to libertarianism, which is against telling people what to do. So they got a little controversy there, brewing, Will, over the proper attire at the big libertarian convention coming up this weekend. That's just this is in the Wall Street Journal, by the way. This isn't like off the wall news or anything. This is not in some obscure media outlet. It's the Wall Street Journal. I thought that was just totally fascinating. I really did.
Will Thomas Massey have to cut the beard?
I don't know. Well, I guess you could say his is neat. He's got neat facial hair. I don't know what would be considered unneat or untidy, inappropriate facial hair. We'll see. It's just fascinating. The open-toed shoes. I guess a lot of folks wear those to the convention.
Thomas Massey, he looks like a completely different human without his beard.
He does. I agree.
I saw some pictures of him before and after the beard. I can't tell the two people. I thought they were two different people.
He's got a big, bushy, full beard. He does. And it covers a lot of his face.
You know, he used to wear, do you remember this? He used to wear a little lapel on his suit that was actually a digital debt countdown clock.
didn't know that.
Or not clock, but a debt counter. You know how the big debt, how much U.S. debt they have? He had a one that was small enough that he would wear on his lapel, and it would like click up, every 5 seconds or so with the amount of debt the U.S. has accumulated.
Oh my gosh. Using data centers for that. Oh, we can't do that. Gee whiz. On the C Spire text line, Rod in the Delta, I was talking earlier about journalists being in country in Vietnam, and this was really the first situation when you could literally watch live action from your living room on black and white televisions. These journalists probably used film that had to be developed and shipped from a war zone. That's a good point, Rod in the Delta sends. CC in Senatobia, by the way, with respect to the deal that the president is talking about with Iran, says, how can you even trust a deal that you make with a country who only wants to annihilate you? I agree, CC, and it's, back to the old Ronald Reagan famous quip, trust but verify. And I think that's where we have to be. So I'm confident that the president knows that as well and would insist that certain protections and verification mechanisms would be included in that deal to ensure they are upholding their end of it. So on the C Spire text line, we were talking about recognizing as part of Memorial Day those who served in the Revolutionary War because there were some remains recently found. This is interesting. Thank goodness Columbus, Mississippi just added the names of the black men left off intentionally back in the 30s. From Rita. Wow. Thanks for sending that, Rita. Yeah, that's wrong. They served in our uniforms, served this country. They deserve to be recognized and included. I'm sorry to hear that, but glad to know that's been rectified. Let's see. Louis from the 662 says, Will is hitting us with Earth, Wind, and Fire September. I had to check my calendar. Kudos. Absolutely. Great tune. Debbie in Hattiesburg, we were talking about the Principal Corps. We had Dr. Braxton Stowe from Ole Miss. He's the program director of the Principal Corps. It's designed to train and educate and prepare those for a career in education, leadership, and administration. Says, does Debbie, my daughter is quitting teaching after 12 years due to the principal and assistant principal not backing her in the classroom. The kids love her, but she has dealt with this for the past 3 years. Debbie, I hear that over and over again from teachers, especially with my daughter being a former teacher. It's a big thing, and it's important, Will. It doesn't matter what the organization is, that leadership has your back. And honestly, to the outside world, they always got your back, right? You may have internal squabbles like you do in your family, but don't cross that line and attack the family. Then they're going to defend, and that's the way it should be. And I think that's part of the problem. That's not always been the case. And to some extent, it's because of irate parents that are just act inappropriately. And you know this, and they bust up into schools and can't imagine that their child has ever done anything inappropriate or incorrect. I
got news for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, Gerard, I would love to hear your thoughts on the NAACP asking black athletes to boycott SEC schools due to the push for redistricting. How ludicrous this sounds, says Curtis on the C Spire text line. Yeah, I agree, Curtis. And so we did talk about this the day that report came out, the day the NAACP, I guess, went to the press to encourage black athletes to consider HBCUs and forego opportunities at the SEC schools. I think that's crazy, honestly. I don't see how that makes a difference. I guess they think, well, gee, our leadership in the state would acquiesce if they thought that these athletes would decide not to attend the schools in our state and other states as well and opt for the HBCUs. Now, that would be putting their own personal career, not to mention their pocketbooks, at risk in a big way. So I think that's disrespectful to them, to the athletes and their families, is what I think. But I appreciate the question there, Curtis. Let me know what you think about that. Tim and McGee says, a lot of bills didn't make it in our state legislature, and some of us will remember. I hear you, Tim. Mo sent a graphic that shows somebody at the Libertarian Convention with a boot on their head. Nice use of AI there, Mose. I love it. We're coming right back with Hotel California bumping us out of this segment.
Polyumpa, Mississippi.
You know what that means.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
We'll do it live.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Cold late nights so long ago when I was not so strong, you know. A pretty man came to me, never seen eyes so blue. You know I could not run away, it seemed. We'd seen each other in a dream. Seemed like he knew me, he looked right through me. Yeah.
1975, that's the hit that launched it for the Wilson sisters. Ann and Nancy, Magic Man. Another great tune. So shots rang out again, man, at the White House over the weekend. It seems to be a rather common occurrence. Will, I hope we don't get desensitized to this, honestly, because this is a serious deal. It's a big deal. We cannot have this kind of chaos in our country. And it's just always some loon that goes off the deep end here. The suspect dead after trading gunfire with officers near the White House. That, according to the Secret Service, this happened a couple of days ago. Man, the video showing all the various law enforcement organizations and their assets, their vehicles, their people, which is what it should be. It's the President of the United States. And you can't take that sort of situation lightly. And you got to know if you're going to go play shoot 'em up around the White House, you probably aren't going to live. Mm-hmm. That's just a fact. So, and the president, I think he's gotten to the point, he just shrugs it off. It's gotten crazy.
Well, it's become such a routine.
I know.
Almost.
I know.
You know, I remember when something like this. I remember there was a crazy guy that shot up the White House when Clinton was president, and that was news for like a solid week. That was the biggest story in the world going on.
Totally true.
And now it's, you know, an everyday occurrence almost. Every week occurrence almost.
Perhaps the most shocking video, I don't know if you saw it, Will, was an ABC reporter, Selena Wang, and she was in the middle of filming around the area when the shots rang out. And, man, she started ducking on camera. You can see her hitting the floor there. We can't have that in this country. We just cannot have it. Oh, man. So,
I mean, the biggest thing to come out of this will be the meme.
Yeah.
Of the White House reporter, the NBC reporter, Julie Turskin, I believe her name is.
Yeah. She
was the one who was going, "What's that?" And these people posted videos of her doing all kinds of funny stuff with her going, "What's that?" That to me, that's the craziest thing, is that you get this madman believing he's Jesus Christ shooting up the White House or trying to shoot up the White House, and he gets killed. That's not even the headline.
I know. Incredible. Out there in California, they've got an interesting campaign race, a race going on, I should say, for mayor of Los Angeles and, of course, governor of California. But the mayor's race is really intriguing. Spencer Pratt, honestly, just a common sense guy that's running for mayor of Los Angeles. Now, Los Angeles is maybe America's second largest city. I know that there's some.
It's the most populous county. I know Los Angeles County is the most populous
you're right.
county in the U.S.
Not sure about the city limits, but I mean, for years it was New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. Not sure where that all stands now. I haven't looked at the rankings lately. But nonetheless, it's a big town. And you're right, you got a big town with a bunch of suburbs in the county, and it's like one just gigantic metropolis. I remember working out there, and this is 40 years ago, talking to people that work for the same firm that would be assigned to projects that would be considered in town, if you will. And they were driving 50 miles to get to the other side of the same town, that being Los Angeles. That's 40 years ago. But nonetheless, this guy Spencer Pratt, he was asked a question about the homeless. The homeless situation is a huge problem in Los Angeles because they pretty much invite the homeless. It turns out what Pratt says, he says they're not homeless. They're drug addicts. They've been bussed in by scam rehabs, scam NGOs, scam homeless nonprofits. Amen. You're right. He said, these people, when I unplug them, they're all going to Seattle where the mayor will welcome them. That's just awesome. He's absolutely right. He is 100% right. And this was in a little Meet the Candidates expose done by Channel 7. That's the ABC affiliate there in the Valley in Los Angeles. Yeah, man, what a turnaround this would be if Spencer Pratt could win this election and become the mayor of this giant city and then start implementing a plan and executing a plan to clean it up. Because it's a shame what the liberals, what the Democrats have allowed to happen in that city, in San Francisco, in California in general. God bless him. He's brave to jump into that hornet's nest, and I hope he wins. I hope he prevails. He would absolutely be awesome, I think, as the mayor of Los Angeles. Fox News, SuperTalk News.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Thanks so much for joining us today. A short week, getting it kicked off on this Tuesday after Memorial Day. Hope you had a good one and remembered the reason why we take the day off, to honor those who've served in America's armed forces and made the ultimate sacrifice to protect the freedoms we certainly enjoy today. So Thomas in Greenwood, yeah, I've seen this, Thomas. I talked about this last week. The data reflecting how the votes were distributed across age groups, that, of course, with respect to Thomas Massey's bid for re-election in Kentucky last week, I saw it. The ages 56 and over broke for Galrain, the challenger, and below that age, from 18 up to 55, broke for Massey. So Thomas wants to know, what's the Republican Party going to do in a few years when the boomers are irrelevant? Everyone under 55 is a fan of Massey, so they can't dismiss him as a Democrat or Libertarian because he's America first and a fiscal conservative forever. I would just respond by saying that's why we have elections. That's why we go to the polls. The American people will speak regardless of their age. Those who are eligible, registered to vote, will cast their ballot, and we will see. With respect to the Republican Party, I can't speak for the Republican Party and what their strategy is to deal with that. And I certainly appreciate some of Massey's positions, but I also believe that he can be a bit defiant, and he can also stand in the way of good policy. He seems to call attention to himself to some extent. I do certainly applaud him for always calling attention to this nation's financial condition and it's fiscal policy, it's deficits, it's debt. Man, I've talked about that extensively, certainly on this program, and in an effort to try to inform people as to where that is, and I don't see any slowdown whatsoever. I think the deficits are $2 trillion plus for as far as we can see, and I think the debt's going to continue to be racked up. As a result of that, he's called attention to it. Others have as well, but they really haven't offered any tenable solutions. That's the problem, because all the solutions are painful, and nobody wants to endure the pain, and no politician wants to impose the pain. So I can tell you this, Thomas, if Massey got his way, then those people that broke for him in this election last week wouldn't, because then they'd start feeling it. Mm-hmm. And that would be a problem. It's a tough deal. I freely admit that and acknowledge that, and I'd like to see more respectful, open debate and discussion about that issue in this country. I just don't see it. There's just no interest in having that discussion. Just quite simply, Social Security tops the list. Out of money in 6 years. Not totally, but not enough to satisfy all of its payment obligations. Everybody running for U.S. Senate this year is going to have to deal with that during their term. There are 33 seats that are being contested, including one here in the state of Mississippi. So they should tell us, what's your plan? Not really hearing much. It's 6 years. That's an eternity, as you know, Will, in politics.
In politics, yeah.
That's an eternity. And why talk about something that would cause problems for you politically?
Unpopular.
He hasn't offered solutions. He hasn't. Not tenable solutions, Thomas. You're wrong about that. Ending opt will help Social Security. I don't know what that means. Opt. What do you mean, ending opt? He hasn't offered anything. None of them have. Because trillions are needed. Trillions. And offering any solution or any proposal that cuts benefits is a non-starter. No chance you get no chance that you get elected if you offer that. No chance. And he's not going to do it. And I think what you're talking about is just opting out of the program so that you could invest in your pension plan of choice. Then that indicates you don't understand how the program works, because the day that happens is the day the benefits stop at the level they are. It's not a tenable solution. It's the same problem we have with the PERS system here. In fact, one of the arguments, Will, that came up last week in the school choice debate that was made is that, well, gee, if we put school choice in place and students leverage that and transfer it out of the public schools, that means we need fewer teachers and administrators, fewer employees in the public school system, which means less money coming into PERS. Therefore, we can't do school choice because of its impact on PERS. Now, connect those dots and think about that for a minute. So what we're saying is we got to keep government fully employed, even if we could cut spending by eliminating positions or, say, not hiring for positions that are vacated. Can't do that because that means less money coming into PERS. That's where we are, literally. Can't make government more efficient. We got to continue the bloat to protect PERS. That's crazy.
And oh, by the way, the people that want to try to fix it at least, they will be kicked out of office.
Oh, that's exactly right. That's the point I was trying to make, is that the mere mention of this gets you kicked out. The mere mention. Stop the fraud and stealing of Social Security. What fraud and stealing? That the Doge group already figured out that was like nothing. Just nothing. Now, were there people on the rolls that are dead and shouldn't be there? Right. Were they getting benefits? No. And the stealing usually...
But at the end of the day, that number is so small.
It's nothing. It's teeny... and it's not... It doesn't even exist. And it's an easy fix. Look, the fundamental problem is we don't have enough people working to pay into the system to cover the benefits. It was 5 to 1 in the 60s. Now it's 2.5 to 1 and declining.
And people are living longer.
Right. All the above. Doesn't work. It's just the math doesn't work. So I wish it were as simple as just cutting out what is perceived to be fraud and stealing, but that's just...
They would have done that already because that would have been popular.
Even Elon Musk and his team came away and said, yeah, we saw some people that are apparently dead that are on the rolls, but they're not getting any benefits. So that's not true. In the stealing, usually that refers to what's totally misunderstood, which is Congress, who, according to law, the Social Security, when it produces surpluses, has to loan their surplus to the Treasury, who pays back every dime of those loans with interest. And by the way, you know what that interest is used for? To pay benefits. It's their investment. It's the only thing Social Security is allowed to invest in. Now, I, for one, think Social Security ought to be able to invest in private securities. They only have one investment that they can make, and that's Treasury notes. That's it. They have no other options. Unlike Mississippi's PERS in state public pension systems, which can invest in just as any other investor can. They can acquire private securities. In fact, last time I checked, the number one holding in Mississippi PERS is Microsoft stock. Guess what? Yeah. Guess what? Big data center operator, by the way. So, but I wish it were that easy. It's just unfortunate. That's not the case. The fundamental problem is not enough people that are paying in because it's a pay-as-you-go system. And when it was started, it was like 45-1. And also remember that when Social Security was started in 1935, the average life expectancy for a male was 59 and a female 61. It was like, just in case you make it to 65, that's why it's called Social Security, by the way. It was a poverty protection program, not a retirement program. It was insurance against being poor in case you happen to live to be 65 or older. That's why the math doesn't work. It wasn't designed as a pension program. That's why they called it social insurance. I've seen the bill, Thomas. Don't send it to me. I'm very familiar with it. It's not a workable solution. What Massey's bill doesn't contemplate are the trillions of dollars needed to make sure benefits can be paid to all those who have earned them or currently paying them. I'm very familiar with it. Cannot do school choice to being proven to be terrible for academics. Nothing to do with PERS. So that's on the C Spire text line. So what you're saying is parents and families can't figure that out. That government tells you what's the best academic environment. Parents and families aren't good consumers. They're just dumb, can't figure out what's in the best interest of their student children. I'm not buying it, sorry. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Three families.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Toto, Africa. Big hit for the group. I think it was 1983, Will, when they won a Best Album, bunch of awards at the Grammys, back when the Grammys actually meant recognizing the best music. Oh, man. Talented group there, Toto. On the C Spire text line, how many on PERS are below retirement age? And so I asked, receiving benefits or paying into the system? Receiving benefits. Here's the data. There's 120,000 roughly retirees and beneficiaries. Because remember, you can choose a plan where your benefits would continue to someone you named as to succeed you, you can choose one of those plans, such as your spouse or your family, something like that. You could choose one of those plans, which means your benefits are a little lower while you're living, because then they get passed on once you're deceased. So that's all figured into the actuarial table. So roughly 120,000. There are 145. This is straight from the PERS website. Currently active members paying into the public employees system. So on the C Spire text line, the person that says to my response about, I believe that parents and families can make the best choice for their children with respect to education setting, says the NAEP test does. Facts matter, not emotions and half-truths. I operate on research and data, not personal agenda and emotions. Well, first I would encourage you to check out, like the state of Florida, for example, which has one of the most robust school choice programs in the country. In fact, the last data I looked at said some 50% of students in Florida leverage some of the features, provisions of their school choice program. It's been around a while. One of the best education outcomes for K through 12 students in the country. My only point is, can't people tell if it's not working for their kids? I mean, if they made a choice using Magnolia scholarship account, as was provided for in HB2 this past year, and their student leveraged that account to attend a private school, for example, another public school, homeschool, and they're not doing well, wouldn't they change that? I mean, isn't it like when you're a consumer, if you're buying something that's not really, you don't think is providing the value you expected,
go buy something else.
You buy something else. You figure it out. All I'm saying is, well, in this case, government says, nope, we got it figured out for you. This is the best. You got to do exactly what we say. That's what I oppose. That government knows better how to provide for the education of your children and your family than you do. It's simple as that. And I think the market will determine who survives, who prevails, who gets the students, where the money flows. Simple as that. How old do you have to be to receive PERS? It depends on how many years you have. We've got different programs, but I think it's 25 years at any age, and I believe that's what the data is. I can't remember the exact rules about it. And then there's another number of years you can have, and I believe you have to be there's so many different tiers. I can't remember well. I believe you have to be 62, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong on that. So probably needed to check me on that. But those are the basic rules, and I'll get to it and get the exact data for you. But so there's two different scenarios. You have the full number of years, retired at any age. This was big time controversial because you remember last year, and it may be 30. I think it is. Last year, it's 30. Last year, they went to 35. Mm-hmm. That was in the bill that Daniel Sparks authored, and that was to sort of help the finances of PERS, and that got a lot of pushback, especially from our first responders. And then there was a provision that essentially reversed that and sent it back down to 30, but now I think they're pushing for 25 is what I'm hearing, for the first responder community. So, yeah, that's how that works. It's a certain number of years at any age, the 30, I believe, and then if you've got less than 30, you've got to be a certain age to qualify. I can't remember if it's 62 or 65. Somebody out there probably knows. So on the C Spire text line, there's your problem. Where else can you find that type of retirement? Nowhere. Should be abolished. I know people hate me now, but I don't care. Well, here's what I would encourage you to think. That generally speaking, the pay in the public sector trails that in the private sector. It is true that in the public sector, you have these kinds of defined benefit programs. It's PERS' slogan, benefits for life. If you're in the private sector, you have what's called typically a 401k plan, and you contribute, your employer contributes, you retire, boom, that's how much money you got. And when you've spent it all, when you've drawn it all out, that's it. You may outlive your money.
But there's a reason why businesses moved away from these
unaffordable. Doesn't work.
pension plans that they used to have way back when.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few that still have them, but in general, that's right. That's not typical. You only find that in the public sector. So it's always been a trade-off. Well, I make less money, but I like the benefits. So I would encourage the texter here to think about this. We could abolish it. That's true. And by the way, the new program now it's a hybrid. It's a defined benefit plan, a defined contribution plan. That went into effect March 1st of this year. But what we're finding is that public sector organizations are telling us, I'm having a harder time recruiting people in, because unless we raise the pay to offset the fact that the benefits might be less, of course, those that invest wisely on the defined contribution plan would say, I'm actually getting more benefits. It's just a difference between it being benefits for life. You can make good investments and really prop up your account, but that money when you retire, that's it. It doesn't keep going until you die. Whereas in a defined benefit plan like PERS, it continues until you die. And that's the benefit. So we can certainly abolish it, but we would have to increase pay, I think, considerably to be competitive at that point, because that's a big competitive advantage that the public sector has. Always has been. Yeah, I know I could make more money salary-wise in the private sector, but I'm more about this retirement plan. And, I mean, you think about it. You could go to work in your early 20s, work 30 years, in your 50s, you're ready to retire. You may live 30 years, and you got that check coming in every month.
Yep.
With cost of living adjustments that are automatic in the PERS program. So, on the C Spire text line, the active duty military can retire after 20 years, and with the state after being vested any time after age 60. Got it. Taking advantage, one now, and the latter in 1 month. Happy about it. I understand, and that's the point I was trying to make. I get it. So congratulations, by the way. Public school teachers make way more than private school teachers. I haven't really done the analysis on that. That's on the C Spire text line. I'll take your word for it. But I think it goes back, Will, to what I was saying earlier, that money's certainly an issue. You got to be competitive. But sometimes it's secondary. It's the environment in which you work. It's and studies have shown over and over again, workplace environment type studies by companies that do that, is that it's about that relationship with their direct report. More than anything, that's what they consider. A person considers as far as job satisfaction is concerned. If we're not paying people who are 50, then we could afford higher salaries. Poor plan. That's why you don't allow the inmates to run the asylum. So I assume you mean to increase the number of years required to retire, because I just made the point that you could retire with full benefits in your 50s if you started in your 20s now working for the government. Well, then it would be less competitive. And that's what you guys got to consider, is that it's all about those market dynamics. Okay, you're telling me I got to work till I'm 60. I'm going to work in the private sector. You see what I'm saying there. So that's all kind of figured in to the model. And it is a unique advantage that the public sector has. And keep in mind that we taxpayers, we contribute 2/3 of the total contributions into their account for their retirement. The employee themselves contributes 1/3, roughly. Let's see here. Tell them to get out here and catch criminals without good retirement. Work all holidays too, says Hogman. I hear you, Hogman. I get it. I totally understand. I'm with you, man. Currently, you have to serve 30 years to retire with full benefits. That's what I thought. I'm quite conservative, but I just can't get on board with school choice. I've worked in schools for over 10 years and can confidently say that our licensed educators are highly trained and effective. My problem is when we start sending public taxpayer funds to schools that don't require educators to be licensed. The market is a far superior regulator of quality and performance than government. That's my response to that. Coming right back.
The From theSeabrook.com.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Well, a different name, whoa, and a different place.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. I didn't know that our discussion was going to take us into this PERS stuff, but I know that was mainly because I mentioned that it came up as part of the school choice forum. And there are going to be more of those, which is kind of cool that our little panel is going to do. We've had Leah Ferretti here in the studio before. She's with the organization Mississippi Ready that promotes education freedom. She, a mother that has utilized the program that benefited her children, which are dyslexic. You know, we have a program for that where you can choose the proper school for that. And then Starla Brown with Americans for Prosperity. She was on our panel. Russ Latino was last time we did it as well with the Magnolia Tribune. And then Lindsey Beckham, Moms for Liberty. So that was our group. On the C Spire text line with respect to PERS, I'm on PERS Tier 4, and I can say I make much less than market average since MSPB posts what market is, but the PERS retirement benefits are superior, but having a small paycheck in the meantime hurts. Yeah, I hear you, and I think that's the trade-off that most folks go through when they consider employment either in the public sector or the private sector, is that the public sector can offer typically more PTO, more days off, and then, of course, the benefits, mainly the pension plan, which exceeds that of what you can get, generally speaking, in the private sector. And I did verify that the current Tier 4, 30 years of service at any age, 8 years to vest and retire at 65. So I couldn't remember if it was 62 or 65 is the way that works. I'd argue this for PERS, Gerard. It's similar to when people complain about veterans getting special benefits. Their response is the sign-up is open to everybody. It's similar for public service. Working with the public is a special burden with not a lot of benefits in terms of compensation. PERS is the main perk to being a state employee. If they want to complain about PERS, they can sign up. There are many jobs open in local governments, law enforcement, or the state level and the classroom. I agree with everything you said, except I would point this out. Whether you're in the public sector or the private sector, you're dealing with the public. You can call it public service because you're working for a publicly funded entity, but you're still dealing with the public, no matter what. And so I don't see that as a distinction. But I agree that generally speaking, the pay is lower, but it's offset, as I've said many times already, with the increased benefits. Let's see. Check out how giving the public money to homeschool kids and private school kids' parents is affecting the public schools in St. Johns County, Florida. Well, I might dig into that, but here's the point that I would make is if the public schools are performing well and the families are happy, well, then they're not going to leave.
Yeah.
And I've heard the anti-school choice people say, well, it's really in school choice because the private schools can admit who they want. The public schools have capacity restrictions. There's no transportation. I mean, there's a litany of roadblocks they put up. But on the other hand, they say there's going to be such a huge exodus from the public schools, we're going to lose this money. Well, those are contradictory. Which is it, guys? Is it that you're concerned that so many people are going to leave the public schools and take the money with them? Or is it they can't use the choice program? Can be both. But you know what? If you're performing and you're producing results and the best outcomes, you've got no worries. No worries. Why would anybody want to transfer and leave? And so let the market sort this out. And this idea of public money, I always find that a bit amusing because the government at all levels, it contracts with lots of private sector entities for various goods and services. The largest employer, I made this point, in Harrison County last week, the largest employer in our state, last I checked, was Ingalls, the shipbuilder. Mm-hmm. Guess where that money comes from? The public. We pay our money to the government, to pay Ingalls to build ships. There are a litany, a wide range of other commodities, goods and services that governments at all levels utilize that are delivered by private companies. And that's using money we send to government. This idea of public versus private money. I actually held my money clip up, said, is this a public dollar or a private dollar? Because what is that exactly? I mean, I know what they're saying is we send our money to government, and then they huddle up and figure out how to spend it. I get it. So allowing the government should be concerned about giving people the freedom and trusting in families, giving them the freedom to make those decisions that will produce the best outcomes. My money's on families, not government. Simple as that. End of story. So the government essentially allowing that money to follow the child to the education setting that's best determined by their families is the government simply producing the best return on investment for the taxpayers. That's my view. So, and I know other people have other views, and that's why we need to have this debate. And I'm proud to be part of that debate in a public forum, and this is what we should be doing in our country and in Mississippi. And, you know, we got to step back a minute, don't we, and recognize how fortunate we are to live in a country where we can even do things like that.
There's some where you don't get to do that.
Correct. You just take what the government sticks down your throat, like it or not. And so, and being able to sit with these people, and like I said, everybody wants the same. We want the best outcomes for education, for our children. Of course we do. It's just a debate on what's the best approach, what's the best strategy, what's the best model to achieve those outcomes. It's simple as that. That's what's at stake here. And I happen to believe that empowering families produces the best outcomes. I don't want government telling me, remember Bernie Sanders a few years ago? You may not recall this. And they did a little film of him. He was in the grocery store or the Walmart or something, and he was amazed at all the different brands of deodorant on the shelf. Why do we need 30 kinds of deodorants? Whose business is it of yours there, dude? The market will sort that out. Simple as that. Do we want to ban the number of brands of deodorant? Yeah, Bernie does. He wants government to control that. By the way, that's the essence of socialism right there.
Absolutely. And if you look at the fall of communism in the East, in the USSR, that was when I believe it was Boris Yeltsin kind of finally realized that they were doomed.
Oh, exactly right.
He was outside of Texas, outside of Dallas somewhere in Texas, and they stopped by a little supermarket. And he walked in there. This was totally unplanned.
Yep.
Walked in there and was amazed by the selection. Not the quality, but the selection of stuff on the shelves at this little grocery store. And he knew that right then that they were doomed.
Capitalism. We got multiple selections. They got none.
They
empty
had none.
shelves. Right.
The average age over there was falling because people were dying early. They were starving to death. They had nothing on their shelves.
100%.
But over in the United States of America, they had abundance. They had selection. You could select which butter you wanted. Do you want the cheapo butter? You want the super expensive, nice butter that tastes a little bit better? You could select it.
And the market will determine who survives,
and
not government.
He was stunned by it, and he knew that it was over after that.
Totally. All right, I got some breaking news here from my friend Mike Hurst. He's the GOP chairman, and I'm going to cover that in the next segment. We're a couple of minutes away from that breaking news, and it concerns the keynote speaker for the Mississippi Republican Party's gala next week, June 4th. The keynote speaker. He just told me who it is. I'll go ahead and share it with you now. I think we got a couple of minutes left. Yeah. It's Senator Tommy Tuberville. He, of course, a candidate for governor in the great state of Alabama. And Chairman Hurst told me, Will, that we're all over this. So he was good enough to share that with us. I appreciate that, Chairman Hurst, you sending that on. So look forward to that event. I'll be attending. Have purchased a table. Should be a good one for sure. So also, we should consider that just about this debate, Will, on the public money and all that sort of stuff. Public schools spend a lot of money with private companies to educate our children. You think about the construction, the massive amount of technology investment that they make. There's lots of assets, resources, tools, goods, and services that public schools invest to deliver education. Right? So it's not all created, produced, manufactured, distributed by government. That would be dumb. We don't want government in that business. So I just feel like that sort of refutes this idea that we can't have public money. We do it all the time, all day long, have forever. And that's good. That's the good news, honestly, is that the government sees fit to acquire and procure these goods and services from companies who specialize in their making. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio with a final segment. The big news, Senator Tommy Tuberville, the speaker at next week's GOP Gala in Mississippi. Stay with us.
At Fillmore Buick GMC.
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Final segment, middays. James in Hattiesburg. Gerard, do you have any idea of how much a school, how many, I don't know what you're saying, James, can't quite make it out. Many students they would need to keep things like lunches, buses. Yeah, I think your point, and I hear you, and I understand this is a key point made, is that there's a certain amount of fixed cost in running a school, just like there is a business or any organization, that no matter how many stakeholders, participants, consumers you have, you got a certain amount of fixed costs no matter what. So with respect to a public school, whether you got 100 students or 50, the fixed costs really don't decline proportionally. I get that. I certainly understand that, James, and I hear you. But here's what I would say to that, is that if the public school is producing the results, they got nothing to worry about. Like, why would, if it's just this great, perfect for everybody, and it's the exact thing every student needs, why would they want to move and transfer? That's, I don't get it. And the key is to make sure that you don't give anybody a reason to opt out, to transfer out. But we, just like with our ancient hospitals that are a problem. Same thing. Well, this has come up before. You've heard state leaders talk about this. Yeah, they're trying to operate these hospitals with this old model. It doesn't work anymore, and that's why they can't make ends meet. Same thing with education. Maybe we need to have some serious discussion about retooling that, right, to be more appropriate for modern education instead of these legacy systems we have that really aren't aligned with the way education can be delivered today. So, but I hear you, and I know that's a legitimate concern, James, and I appreciate that. But we need to have a discussion about that, for sure. Also, we were talking earlier about what makes for satisfaction on the job. Don't underestimate, this is Chris in Flowood, don't underestimate the peace of mind you get knowing your employer is not going anywhere. Job security counts for a lot. Totally agree, Chris. Thank you for pointing that out. I would also say that, to your point, Will, when you got a quality leader, that stability in the organization, those are inextricably linked. Without a good person at the top or management in general, right, you're probably got a failing organization, be it public or private. But I hear you. Chris, and you're absolutely right. I certainly don't underestimate that whatsoever. But also on the C Spire text line, we got a great show. Kudos. Appreciate that. Really do. I think that's all the texts we got in for today. Oh, here's one. One thing they should cut out of PERS is the ability to stack where you're making. There are firemen out there who are working at 2 different places on their days off, and they're able to stack their salaries for the income of the future. Well, only their public sector income. So I'm not sure what you're saying there. If they're working in the private sector on their days off, they're not contributing to PERS, and that's not adding service time into the PERS program, which is used to calculate the benefits. Before we go here, the Democrat Party has been very active in their various press releases. You've seen it, Will, and in social media. And, of course, we in the media, we get their press releases here. I've certainly signed up for them. And they went on the attack of the speaker, Jason White, last week. And they're talking about and this was based on the interview he did with Richard last week concerning redistricting. And he said that the Democratic Party says the reason Mississippi's maps were ever drawn with race as a factor is because Mississippi spent the better part of a century doing everything imaginable to make sure black voters couldn't elect anybody at all. And they go through all those various actions taken. They say race-conscious redistricting wasn't a punishment, it was a correction. It existed because the alternative, as history proved repeatedly, was maps designed to make black voters disappear. So let me get this straight. You can draw maps such that black voters can't vote? Because that's what they're saying. Disappearing to me equates to, no, you don't get to vote. And I'll go back to what I've said before, even with our interview with Robert Johnson, the minority leader in the House, is that have we reached a point that the black people in our state, in our country, feel like they can only be adequately represented by black people and the same for white people? I don't buy that. I think people are more about policies, but I do think the Democrats tend to shame the black people. You got to vote for this person or you're really not. Remember, Joe Biden did it. He used it effectively on his campaign. I just disagree with that. Can't we talk about the issues and the character and the quality of a candidate and how that can improve the quality of their lives? You certainly can't say Benny Thompson's done that for his district. I think there are plenty of evidence-based results that prove the opposite of that. We're out of time here today. Back with you again tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.